Morning, Fred. I poured myself another cup of coffee. Say, you wouldn't believe what happened a few weeks back. It all started on a beautiful morning much like this one. I was down at the marina. Love that place. Spent my whole life in the Navy, so the water's my home, you know. I've got a little sailboat there. Nothing fancy, named her Serenity. She's a far cry from the destroyers I used to command, but she suits me just fine. Anyway, that morning I was polishing the brass on the Serenity. Always liked keeping things shipshape. The sun was warm, the air smelled of salt and fish. Gulls were calling. It was peaceful, just the way I like it. I was enjoying the quiet. Thinking about, well, not much to be honest. Retirement is good for that. Just enjoying the moment. My hands knew what to do with the polish and cloth. Years of keeping things shiny, I guess. It's soothing, that kind of work. Keeps your mind off things. The gentle rocking of the boats, the clinking of the rigging, it's all part of the rhythm. It's my rhythm now. After all those years at sea, the marina is my quiet place, my little slice of heaven. Just me, the Serenity, and the water. Didn't need anything else. Not until, well, I'll tell you about that in a minute. Let me finish this coffee. So there I was, enjoying the quiet. Then my granddaughter Sarah shows up. She'd brought some friends with her, all teenagers, loud bunch. They were excited about renting a sailboat, one of those little sunfish things. I knew the marina owner, good guy. He'd given them a quick rundown on how to sail it, but they were still fumbling around. Sarah waved me over. "Grandpa, come meet my friends." I walked over. "Morning, Sarah," I said. "Having fun?" "We're going to go sailing," she said. She was beaming, proud of herself. I smiled. Good for her. One of the boys, a tall, lanky kid with a mop of blonde hair, was pushing on the tiller like it was a stuck door. He was forcing it. Not a good way to handle a boat. I figured I'd offer a little advice. You know, just a friendly tip. "Son," I said, "you want to be gentle with that. She'll respond better to a light touch." The kid looked at me like I was something stuck to his shoe. Yeah, he said. Didn't even look me in the eye. "I got this." He puffed out his chest like he was some kind of expert. His name was Brian, Sarah told me later. Brian kept wrestling with the tiller. The boat was rocking back and forth. Not a good sign. I shook my head. Kids these days think they know everything. I said, "You sure about that, son? The wind's picking up." Brian snorted. "Look, old man," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "you can't sail this." His friends started giggling. Sarah looked embarrassed. I just stood there, holding my coffee cup, couldn't believe it. "You can't sail this, old man." The words just hung there, echoed across the marina, like a slap in the face. I just nodded, turned and walked back to the Serenity. Didn't say a word, didn't want to make a scene, but inside I was boiling. "You can't sail this, old man." The words kept ringing in my ears. It wasn't just about the little sunfish. It was about everything, my whole life, all those years at sea, the storms I'd weathered, the men I'd led, the responsibility I'd carried. It all felt dismissed, like it didn't matter, like it was nothing. I sat down on the Serenity's deck, stared out at the water, tried to calm myself, took a sip of my coffee. It was cold, didn't care. I felt this tightness in my chest, like a fist clenching around my heart. It was more than anger. It was sadness, a deep, hollow sadness, like something precious had been broken, something I couldn't fix. I thought about the long nights at sea, the cold spray on my face, the thrum of the engines, the quiet camaraderie of the men under my command, the respect we had for each other, the respect I'd earned, and now this. "You can't sail this, old man." Like it all meant nothing. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, tried to push it down. The anger, the sadness, it wasn't easy. It was like trying to hold back the tide. I felt the knot in my throat, tightening, choking me. I opened my eyes, looked at my hands, weathered, calloused. These hands had held the helm of destroyers, guided them through storms, saved lives, and now some punk kid was telling me I couldn't sail a toy boat. It wasn't right, it wasn't fair. And I knew right then and there that I couldn't let it go, not this time. "You can't sail this, old man." Brian's words, they stuck with me. They dug in deep. Brought back a lot of memories, memories of the Navy, of the responsibility, the weight of command. I remembered standing on the bridge of a destroyer, the wind howling, rain lashing down, waves crashing over the bow, the ship pitching and rolling. It was a storm, a real storm, and I was responsible for the ship, for the crew, for their lives. I remembered the pressure, the constant vigilance, the long hours, the decisions, big decisions, decisions that mattered, life or death decisions. I had to be calm. Confident, I had to inspire confidence in my men. They had to trust me, and they did. They respected me. They knew I knew what I was doing. I had earned their respect. Earned it through hard work, through experience, through competence. I wasn't born knowing how to command a destroyer. I learned, I trained, I paid my dues, I rose through the ranks, I proved myself, again and again. I remembered the quiet moments too, the calm after the storm, the camaraderie, the shared meals, the jokes, the stories, the bond we forged, a bond of trust, a bond of respect. We were a team, a family. We relied on each other. We looked out for each other. We respected each other. And I, as their captain, I felt that respect. I earned it, and now this punk kid, this arrogant little brat, dismissing me like I was nothing, like my whole life, my whole career meant nothing. Like I was some doddering old fool who didn't know a thing about boats. The contrast, it stung. It burned. It was like a slap in the face. The respect I had earned, the respect I had known, gone, replaced by this. Disdain, contempt, mockery. It wasn't right. It wasn't fair. The weight of all those years, all that experience, all that responsibility, it felt heavy, heavier than it had ever felt before. The kids' words, they weren't just about sailing. They were about everything. They were about respect. And I realized sitting there on the Serenity that I couldn't let it go, not this time. I couldn't let him diminish everything I had worked for, everything I had become. The hurt started to fade. It turned into something else, something cold, hard. I recognized the arrogance in the kid's words, the ignorance. He didn't know anything about sailing, about the sea, about respect. Respect isn't given, it's earned. I had earned it over a lifetime. A lifetime of hard work, of dedication, of competence. I thought about all the things I had learned, all the skills I had acquired, all the challenges I had overcome. I hadn't just commanded destroyers. I had learned to sail as a boy. Small boats like the Sunfish. I knew how to handle them. I knew the wind, the currents, the tides. I knew the feel of the tiller in my hand, the way the sails filled with wind, the way the boat responded to the slightest touch. I knew the sea. I respected the sea, and the sea in turn respected me. This kid, Brian, he didn't respect anything, not the sea, not the boat, not me. He thought he knew everything. He thought he could just jump in and sail without any knowledge, without any experience, without any respect. He was wrong, dead wrong. I sat there on the Serenity. The anger was still there, but it was different now. It was controlled, focused. It wasn't just about the insult. It was about something bigger. It was about the importance of experience, the importance of competence, the importance of respect. I couldn't let it go. I couldn't let him get away with it. I couldn't let him disrespect me, disrespect the sea, disrespect everything I had worked for, everything I had become. I had to do something. I had to teach him a lesson he wouldn't forget. I made up my mind. Right then and there, I wouldn't let this go unanswered. I knew I had to do something, but what? I sat there on the Serenity staring out at the water. The Sunfish was still bobbing around out there. Brian was still wrestling with the tiller, still making a mess of things. I could just let it go, walk away. Go home, forget about it, pretend it never happened. That would be the easiest thing to do. That's what I usually do. I'm a peaceful man. I like my quiet life. I don't like confrontation. I don't like making waves, but I couldn't shake it. The kid's words, his arrogance, his disrespect, it kept gnawing at me. Like a splinter in my mind, I thought about just going over there, giving him a piece of my mind, telling him what I thought of him. But what good would that do? He wouldn't listen. He'd probably just laugh at me, call me an old man again. It wouldn't change anything. I took another sip of my cold coffee, thought about all the effort it would take to teach him a lesson, to show him what respect really meant. It would mean disrupting my peaceful life. Getting involved, making a plan, it would be a lot of work. And for what? For a punk kid who didn't deserve it. But then I thought about all those years in the Navy, all the challenges I had faced, all the difficult decisions I had made. I hadn't always taken the easy way out. I had faced my responsibilities. I had done what was right, even when it was hard, even when it was uncomfortable. This was no different. This kid's disrespect. It wasn't just about me. It was about something bigger. It was about respect for experience, respect for knowledge, respect for the sea. I couldn't just let it go. I had to do something. I thought about what that something might be. I didn't want to hurt him. I just wanted to teach him a lesson he wouldn't forget, a lesson about respect, a lesson about the sea, a lesson about life. I looked out at the sunfish again. It was still struggling. Brian was getting frustrated. His friends were getting restless. I could see the fear in their eyes. They were starting to realize that they were in over their heads. Good. Let them sweat a little. Let them feel the weight of their ignorance. Let them learn the hard way. But I wouldn't let them get hurt. Not really hurt. I would be there, watching, waiting. And when the time was right, I would step in. I would show them what it meant to be a sailor. I would show them what it meant to respect the sea. I would show them what it meant to be a man. The decision was made. It wouldn't be easy. It wouldn't be pleasant, but it was necessary. I couldn't let this go. Not this time. The insult cut too deep. The disrespect was too blatant. I had to act. I had to restore order. I had to teach this kid a lesson. And in doing so, maybe I would reclaim a little piece of myself, a little piece of the respect that had been lost. The quiet life would have to wait. This was more important. This was about something bigger than myself. This was about principle. This was about respect. I finished my cold coffee, threw the empty cup in the trash, walked over to the edge of the dock, found a quiet spot, sat down, watched the sunfish. It was still out there, bobbing around like a cork in a bathtub. Brian was still at the tiller, yanking and pulling, getting nowhere. His friends were huddled together, looking worried. Good. Let them worry. Let them feel a little fear. Maybe they'd learn something. I watched them for a long time, didn't say a word, didn't move a muscle, just watched, observed, studied. Like I used to study the enemy ships back in the Navy, I needed to understand them, their weaknesses, their vulnerabilities. I needed to know how to handle them, how to teach them a lesson they wouldn't forget. The wind was picking up. I could feel it on my face, smell the salt in the air, hear the waves lapping against the dock. The sunfish was starting to struggle. The sails were flapping, the boat was rocking. Brian was shouting, his friends were screaming, they were losing control. I sat there, still as a statue. A small smile played on my lips, a glint in my eye. The decision was made, the plan was forming. It was time to act, time to teach these kids a lesson about respect, a lesson about the sea, a lesson about life. I shifted my weight, sat up straighter. My back didn't ache as much as it usually did. I felt stronger, younger, like the old Captain Hale was back, the one who commanded destroyers, the one who weathered storms, the one who earned respect. I was ready. I watched that Brian kid. He was all over the place, yanking on the tiller like he was trying to rip it off, pushing and shoving, no finesse, no gentle touch, just brute force. He didn't understand. A sailboat isn't a powerboat. You can't just muscle it around. You have to work with the wind, with the water. You have to feel it, understand it, respect it. He didn't respect anything, just kept forcing it, making things worse. The boat was lurching and swaying, sails flapping like a scared bird. He kept oversteering, correcting too much, then correcting again. It was a mess. He was making a fool of himself, but he didn't seem to notice. Too busy showing off, trying to impress his friends. I watched how he interacted with them. He was loud, boastful, always trying to be the center of attention, cracking jokes, flexing his muscles, trying to act tough, trying to be the alpha male. I could see right through him. He was insecure, needed their approval, desperate to impress them. And that's what this was all about, showing off, trying to prove himself, trying to be something he was, a sailor. He wasn't a sailor, not even close. I saw the fear in his eyes too, hidden beneath the bravado. He knew he was losing control, knew he was in over his head, but he couldn't admit it, not in front of his friends. He'd rather risk their lives than risk embarrassment. That's how important their approval was to him, more important than safety, more important than common sense, more important than respect. He was a fool, a dangerous fool. I watched him closely, studying his every move, every expression, every interaction. I was learning his weaknesses, his vulnerabilities, his fears. I was learning how to handle him, how to teach him a lesson he wouldn't forget, a lesson about respect, a lesson about the sea, a lesson about life. I got up stretched. My old bones creaked a bit, didn't matter. I felt a surge of energy, a purpose. I walked back to the Serenity, time to get to work. I started with the ropes, checked each one, tightened them, made sure they were secure. Not too tight, not too loose, just right. My hands knew what to do. They'd done this 1,000 times before on bigger boats, more important boats, but the principle was the same. Attention to detail, precision, care, respect for the equipment, respect for the sea. I moved on to the rudder, checked the pintles and gudgeons, made sure they were lubricated, moved the rudder back and forth, felt the smooth, easy motion, no stiffness, no resistance, just right. The rudder is the heart of a sailboat. It's what gives you control. Control over your direction, control over your destiny. I knew how to handle a rudder. I'd steered destroyers through storms. This little sailboat was nothing. But I treated it with the same respect, the same care, the same attention to detail. Then the sails. I unfurled them, checked for tears, for wear, for any sign of weakness. They were in good shape, strong, durable, ready to catch the wind. I adjusted the halyards, tightened them, made sure the sails were set just right, not too tight, not too loose, just right. The sails are the engine of a sailboat. They're what propel you forward. They're what give you speed, power, freedom. I knew how to handle sails. I'd sailed across oceans. This little sailboat was nothing, but I treated it with the same respect, the same care, the same attention to detail. As I worked, I felt a connection to my past, to my life in the Navy, to the men I had commanded, to the ships I had sailed. It was more than just a pre-sail check. It was a ritual, a reconnection with my competence, a reaffirmation of my mastery. I was a sailor, a captain, a leader. I knew what I was doing. I had earned my respect, and I wouldn't let some punk kid take that away from me. The Serenity was ready. She was shipshape. She was ready to sail, and so was I. I watched that sunfish, bobbing around like a toy. Brian was still wrestling with it, getting nowhere fast. The wind was picking up, shifting, gusting. It was perfect, exactly what I needed. I could see it all in my mind, clear as day. The wind would shift again. Suddenly, a strong gust from the north. The sunfish, with its sails set wrong, would be caught off guard. It would heel over, tip precariously. Brian, with his inexperience, wouldn't know what to do. He'd panic, freeze. His friends would scream. Chaos, confusion, fear. It would be the perfect opportunity, I knew. Just when to intervene, just when to step in, like a guardian angel, a seasoned sailor coming to the rescue. I'd calmly walk over, take control, right the boat, calm the kids, show them how it's done. Show them what real seamanship looked like. Show them what respect for the sea really meant. Brian would be humiliated, humbled. He'd realize how wrong he was, how little he knew. He'd see the difference between his arrogance and my competence. He'd understand what true skill looked like, what true experience meant, what true respect was. He'd learn his lesson, a lesson he wouldn't forget. The plan was simple, elegant, effective. It wouldn't require much effort, just a little timing, a little patience, a little showmanship. I'd let him flounder a bit longer, let him dig himself a deeper hole, let the fear build. Then when the moment was right, I'd step in, and he'd finally understand. He'd finally learn. He'd finally respect. I smiled. It was a good plan, a very good plan. The wind shifted again, a stronger gust. The sunfish heeled over. Brian yelled. His friends screamed. The time was almost here. Almost. I needed one more thing. Just a little nudge. To make sure the lesson really sunk in. I looked around the marina. There was a small cabin cruiser tied up about 50 feet downwind from the sunfish. It wasn't occupied. The owner was probably out on the water somewhere. Good, that's what I needed. I casually strolled down the dock, like I was just taking a walk, enjoying the sunshine, admiring the boats. I stopped by the cabin cruiser, pretended to inspect the hull, ran my hand along the smooth fiberglass, nodded appreciatively. Nice boat. Shame about what was about to happen. I bent down, like I was tying my shoe. No one was watching. Good. I found the mooring line. The one closest to the sunfish. It was a thick rope, securely fastened to a cleat on the dock. I gave it a little tug, tested it, strong, just like I thought. I loosened the knot, just a little, not enough to be obvious, just enough to weaken it. Just enough to let the wind do its work. I stood up, brushed off my pants, continued my stroll, like nothing had happened, like I was just an old man admiring the boats. I glanced back at the cabin cruiser. The wind was picking up. The boat was starting to strain against the loosened mooring line. Good, just good. I walked back to my spot, sat down again, resumed my watch. The sunfish was still struggling. Brian was still yelling. His friends were still screaming. The cabin cruiser was drifting slowly, almost imperceptibly, towards the sunfish, towards Brian, towards his lesson. Everything was in place. The stage was set. The trap was laid. All I had to do now was wait. Wait for the wind. Wait for the moment. Wait for the reckoning. A small smile played on my lips. It was going to be a good lesson, a very good lesson. The wind was really picking up now. I could feel it tugging at my shirt. The sunfish was bouncing around like a cork. Brian was still at it, yanking and pulling. Not a good sign. The cabin cruiser was drifting closer, slowly but surely, almost there. I coughed a little, just a small cough, enough to draw attention. Brian glanced over at me. I gave him a little wave. A weak, fluttery wave, like an old man waving to his grandson. He looked away, dismissed me. Good, that's what I wanted. Wind's picking up, isn't it? I said, loud enough for him to hear. He didn't respond. Too busy wrestling with the boat. I chuckled softly. Looks like it might rain later, I added. Still no response. Perfect. He was ignoring me, thinking I was just a harmless old man, a doddering old fool. Good. Let him think that. I leaned back, put my hands behind my head, closed my eyes, like I was taking a nap, like I didn't have a care in the world, like I wasn't orchestrating his downfall. I listened to the sounds of the marina, the wind whistling through the rigging, the waves slapping against the hulls, the distant cries of the gulls, the shouts of Brian and his friends, getting louder, more frantic. Good, let them panic, let them feel the fear. I opened my eyes, stretched again. Winced a little, like my back was hurting, like I was just a frail old man. I looked over at Brian. He was struggling, really struggling. The sunfish was tilting precariously. Close to capsizing. He looked terrified. Good, let him feel the terror. Let him understand the power of the sea. The power he couldn't control. Might want to reef those sails, son, I called out. My voice was weak, raspy, like an old man's voice. He didn't hear me, or he pretended not to. He was too busy trying to save himself, too busy trying to regain control, too busy learning his lesson, the hard way. The cabin cruiser was almost on top of them, just a few feet away. I could see the panic in Brian's eyes now, real panic, unmasked, raw. Good, let him feel the panic. Let him understand the consequences of his arrogance, of his disrespect. I smiled, a small, secret smile. Everything was going according to plan. He was right where I wanted him, right where he needed to be, right where he could learn his lesson, a lesson he wouldn't forget. I checked my watch. Almost time. The wind was steady now, blowing strong from the north, just like I predicted. I held up my hand, felt the wind on my palm, strong, steady, perfect. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, smelled the salt. The seaweed, the coming rain. I opened my eyes. Looked out at the water. The sunfish was still struggling. Brian was still fighting the tiller. The cabin cruiser was drifting closer. Everything was in place. I glanced at the flags on the marina's flagpole, snapping in the wind, pointing north. Good. Just what I needed. I checked the anemometer on the top of the mast. The little cups were spinning fast. I estimated the wind speed. About 15 knots. Maybe a little more, plenty strong enough. More than strong enough for a novice like Brian. I looked at the sunfish again. The sails were full, too full. He should have reefed them by now. But he hadn't. He didn't know how, or he was too stubborn, too proud, too busy trying to prove himself. He was going to learn a hard lesson today, a very hard lesson. The cabin cruiser was almost there, just a few feet away, drifting slowly, inevitable like fate, like destiny. I felt a little twinge of something. Not guilt, not exactly, more like anticipation, like waiting for the curtain to rise on a play I had written, a play I had directed, a play with a very specific ending. The tension was building. I could feel it in the air, like static electricity, like the calm before a storm. The sunfish was getting closer to the cabin cruiser. Closer and closer. Brian was still shouting. His friends were still screaming. They were starting to realize the danger. But it was too late to change course, too late to avoid the inevitable. I sat there, quiet, still, watching, waiting. The wind howled, the waves crashed, the gulls cried, the tension mounted. The moment was coming, the moment of truth, the moment of reckoning. I took another deep breath, held it, released it slowly. Everything was ready. The stage was set. The actors were in place. The play was about to begin. The wind shifted, hard. It hit like a hammer, stronger than I expected. The sunfish's sail caught the gust, full force. It jammed, stuck fast, couldn't move. The little boat heeled over, sharply, precariously, like it was about to tip over, toss those kids into the water. Brian yelled, a high-pitched, panicked yell, not the confident, boastful yell from earlier. This was a yell of fear, pure, unadulterated fear. His friends screamed, a chorus of screams, high-pitched, terrified. They clung to the sides of the boat. White-knuckled, eyes wide, they knew they were in trouble, real trouble. The sunfish tilted further, closer to the water, closer to disaster. Brian was frozen, couldn't move, didn't know what to do. His face was white. His eyes darted around. Looking for help, looking for a way out, but there was no way out. Not yet. The cabin cruiser, its mooring line now completely undone by the wind, drifted closer, like a predator closing in on its prey. It was almost on top of them. Just a few feet away. A looming presence, a silent threat. The danger was real now, palpable. I could feel it from where I sat. A knot tightened in my stomach, not fear, not exactly, more like excitement, anticipation. This was it. The moment I had been waiting for, the moment of truth. Brian finally moved. He fumbled with the sail, tried to release it, but it was jammed tight. It wouldn't budge. He yanked and pulled. His face red with exertion, with fear, but it was no use. The sail wouldn't move. The boat kept tilting. The cabin cruiser kept drifting closer. The danger was escalating quickly. I stood up, slowly. Deliberately, it was time. Time to act, time to step in. Time to teach these kids a lesson they wouldn't forget, a lesson about respect, a lesson about the sea, a lesson about life. I walked towards the sunfish. Each step was deliberate, measured, calm, like I was walking across my own deck, like I was in command, like I knew exactly what I was doing. I could feel the eyes on me. Brian, his friends, the people on the dock, they were watching me. Waiting, wondering what I was going to do, I reached the sunfish. It was rocking violently, close to capsizing. Brian was still struggling with the jammed sail, his face a mask of fear. His friends huddled together, terrified. The cabin cruiser was just a few feet away, drifting closer. The air crackled with tension. I stepped onto the sunfish, carefully, confidently. My presence changed the atmosphere instantly. The chaos subsided. The screaming stopped. The air became still. Everyone was watching me, waiting, holding their breath. I walked to the tiller, took it in my hands, my weathered hands, hands that had steered destroyers through storms, hands that knew the sea, hands that commanded respect. The tiller felt small, insignificant, but I held it firmly, confidently, like it was the helm of a battleship. "Hey," Brian shouted. "What are you doing?" His voice was high-pitched, cracked. He was scared. He knew he was losing control, losing his authority, losing face. I didn't respond. I didn't even look at him. I was focused on the task at hand, on saving the boat, on saving these kids, on teaching them a lesson. The cabin cruiser was almost upon them. Just a few feet away, I pushed the tiller hard to starboard. The sunfish responded instantly, turning away from the impending collision, just in time. The cabin cruiser drifted past, close enough to touch, close enough to scare them, close enough to teach them a lesson. "What are you doing, old man?" Brian yelled again. His voice was weaker now, less confident, more pleading. I still didn't respond. I was busy adjusting the sails, releasing the jammed halyard, letting the sail out, slowly, carefully. The sunfish righted itself, steadied, came back under control. The immediate danger had passed, but the lesson had just begun. I kept my hands on the tiller, felt the wind, felt the water, felt the boat respond to my touch. It was like riding a bicycle. You never forget. Years melted away. I wasn't an old man on a small sailboat. I was Captain Hale, commanding a destroyer, in the middle of a storm, and I was in control. Completely in control. The sunfish glided through the water, smooth, steady. No more lurching, no more swaying, just a smooth, steady motion. The sails filled with wind, just the right amount of wind. Not too much, not too little, just right. I could feel the power, the speed, the freedom. It was exhilarating. Brian stood there, watching me, his face pale, his eyes wide. He didn't say a word, he didn't have to. I could see it in his eyes, the realization, the understanding, the respect. He finally understood. He finally saw, he finally respected. His bravado was gone, replaced by awe and a touch of fear. He'd seen what I could do. He'd seen the difference between his clumsy attempts and my effortless mastery. He'd seen the difference between arrogance and competence. He'd seen the difference between a boy and a man. His friends were quiet too, huddled together, watching me. Their eyes wide with something, respect, fear, admiration. I couldn't tell, didn't matter. They had learned their lesson too. A lesson about the sea, a lesson about respect, a lesson about life. I sailed the sunfish back towards the marina, slowly, steadily, confidently. The wind was still strong, but it didn't matter. I was in control. Completely in control. Brian watched me. His eyes never left my hands, my weathered hands, hands that held the tiller, hands that controlled the boat, hands that commanded respect. He saw the calluses, the scars, the marks of a lifetime spent at sea. He saw the strength, the experience, the competence. He saw the man he had dismissed, the old man he had mocked, and he finally understood. He finally saw, he finally respected. The fear in his eyes, it wasn't just fear of the sea, it was fear of me. Fear of the man he had underestimated, the man he had disrespected, the man who was now in command. He knew who was in charge, he knew who held the power, he knew who commanded respect, and he knew he had made a mistake. A big mistake. He looked down at his own hands, soft, smooth, untested, hands that had never held a tiller, hands that had never faced a storm, hands that had never earned respect. He looked back at me, his eyes pleading, asking for forgiveness, asking for understanding, asking for respect. I didn't say a word. I didn't have to. The look in my eyes, the set of my jaw, the firmness of my grip on the tiller, it said everything. It said, "I told you so." It said, "Respect is earned, not given." It said, "You can't sail this." But it also said, "I can." And that was the most important lesson of all. I brought the sunfish alongside the dock, smooth as silk, no bumps, no scrapes. Just a gentle nudge against the pilings. I secured the mooring line, made it fast. The boat was safe. The kids were safe. The lesson was learned. A silence fell over the dock, Thick, heavy, like a blanket. No one spoke. No one moved. They just stared, at me, at the boat, at each other. They were stunned, silent, humbled. The arrogance that had filled the air earlier was gone, replaced by something else. Respect. All embarrassment. I couldn't tell, didn't matter. They had learned their lesson. Then Sarah spoke, her voice clear, strong, proud. He was a captain in the Navy. She said it like an announcement, a proclamation, a revelation. The silence broke, shattered like glass. The kids' eyes widened, their jaws dropped. They stared at me. Like they were seeing me for the first time, like they were seeing a ghost, a legend, a hero, a captain. One of the girls whispered, her voice barely audible. "In the Navy?" Another boy asked, his voice full of disbelief. Brian just stood there, mouth open, eyes glazed over. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. He'd seen the ghost of his own arrogance, the ghost of his own disrespect, the ghost of his own ignorance. He looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time. He saw the weathered face, the calloused hands, the steady gaze. He saw the man he had dismissed, the old man he had mocked, and he finally understood. He finally saw, he finally respected. He didn't say a word, he didn't have to. His eyes said it all. They said I was wrong. They said I'm sorry. They said I understand. They said I respect you. The lesson was learned. The dock was quiet, real quiet, like you could hear the fish breathing. All that bragging and laughing from before, it was gone, just gone, like it never happened. Now it was all different. They were looking at me like I was some kind of hero or something. I was just a man who knew his way around a boat. Brian, he was standing there red-faced. I could practically see the steam coming out of his ears. He didn't look so cocky anymore. Remember how he was strutting around before? Puffed up like a rooster. Now he looked like a wet chicken. All the swagger was gone. He just stood there, quiet as a mouse. Couldn't even look me in the eye. I guess he was remembering what he'd said. "You can't sail this, old man." I bet those words were ringing in his ears. Funny how things change. The quiet stretched on. Nobody knew what to say. Then Brian shuffled his feet. He looked up at me, mumbled something. I couldn't hear him. "Speak up, son," I said. He cleared his throat, swallowed hard. "Sir," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "Sir, I was wondering, could you maybe teach me how to sail, properly, I mean." He looked down at his feet again, scuffed the toe of his shoe against the wooden planks of the dock. He looked like a little kid caught stealing cookies. All the bravado was gone, just shame, and a flicker of something else. Hope, maybe. I looked at him, really looked at him. Saw the embarrassment in his eyes, the humility, the genuine request for knowledge. He wasn't trying to show off anymore. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He was just asking for help, asking for guidance, asking for respect, asking to earn it. I thought about it for a moment, thought about all the trouble he'd caused, all the disrespect he'd shown, all the arrogance he'd displayed. I could have said no, I could have walked away. I could have left him to flounder on his own, let him learn his lessons the hard way. But something changed in me, seeing him like that, humbled, asking for help. It softened something inside me. The anger, the resentment, it faded away, replaced by something else. Compassion maybe, understanding. I'd been young once too, I'd made mistakes, I'd learned from them. Maybe this kid could too. I looked at him again, saw the sincerity in his eyes, the genuine desire to learn, to improve, to earn respect, and I knew what I had to do. "Sure, son," I said, "I can teach you." His head snapped up, his eyes widened, a smile spread across his face. A real smile, not a cocky smirk. A genuine smile of relief, of gratitude, of hope. "Really?" he asked, his voice full of surprise, full of respect. "Really," I said, "but it's not going to be easy. Sailing takes time, patience, dedication, and most of all, respect. Respect for the sea, respect for the boat, and respect for yourself." He nodded eagerly. "Yes, sir," he said. "I understand, sir." He meant it, I could tell. He'd learned his lesson, a valuable lesson, a lesson about respect, a lesson about the sea, a lesson about life. And me, I'd learned something too. I'd learned that sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's forgiveness. Sometimes it's understanding. Sometimes it's teaching, passing on your knowledge, sharing your experience, helping someone else learn, grow, become better. I smiled, a real smile, a smile of satisfaction, not a smile of vengeance, a smile of peace. I had restored order. I had reclaimed my respect. And I had done it not through anger but through teaching. I looked out at the water. The wind was still blowing. The waves were still crashing, but the storm had passed, both inside me and out. The sun was starting to peek through the clouds. A new day was beginning, a day of learning, a day of growth, a day of respect. Another cup, Fred. I topped off his mug and then mine. So a few weeks went by after that whole sunfish incident. I found myself back on the Serenity, back in my usual spot. Just me, the boat, and the water, the way I like it. Quiet, peaceful. I got to thinking about what happened, about that Brian kid, about his arrogance, about his disrespect. At first I was angry, real angry. But now, well, it was different. The anger was gone, replaced by something else. I don't know what to call it. Satisfaction, maybe. Not the kind of satisfaction you get from getting even. More like the satisfaction of a job well done. I had restored order. That's what it felt like. Like things were back in their proper place. Like the balance had been restored. He had disrespected me, disrespected my experience, disrespected the sea, and I had corrected it, not with anger, not with violence, but with competence, quiet competence. I had shown him what it meant to be a sailor, what it meant to respect the sea, what it meant to be a man. I hadn't yelled, I hadn't lectured, I hadn't even really said much. I just showed him, by my actions, by my competence, by my quiet control, and he had learned. I could see it in his eyes, the respect, the admiration. He had learned his lesson, a valuable lesson, a lesson he wouldn't forget. And that's what gave me satisfaction. Not vengeance, not getting even, but the restoration of order, the restoration of respect. I had reclaimed my dignity, not through anger, not through force, but through quiet competence, through the simple act of being myself, being Captain Thomas Hale, a man who knew the sea, a man who commanded respect. I took a sip of my coffee. It was hot this time, just the way I liked it. I looked out at the water. The sun was shining, the waves were gentle, the gulls were calling. It was peaceful, quiet, the way I liked it. I had my peace back, my quiet life, my little slice of heaven. And it felt good, real good. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, smelled the salt air, felt the gentle rocking of the Serenity beneath me. I was home, back where I belonged, and I was at peace, truly at peace. Not the peace before the storm, but the peace after, the calm after the storm. The peace that comes from knowing you did the right thing. The peace that comes from knowing you are respected. Months passed. Life went back to normal. Back to the quiet rhythm of the marina, back to the Serenity, back to my little slice of heaven. I was out on the water most mornings, just pottering around, enjoying the sun, the breeze, the salt air, the peace, my peace. One morning I was out sailing, just a leisurely sail, nothing fancy. The wind was gentle, the sun was warm, the water was calm. It was perfect, just perfect. I was sitting back, enjoying the ride, letting the Serenity do her thing. She knew the way, she always did. I saw a sailboat coming towards me, a small one, a sunfish. I squinted, tried to make out who was on board. It was Sarah. And her friends, including Brian. I watched them as they approached. They were handling the boat well, smoothly, confidently. No more lurching, no more swaying, no more yelling, no more screaming, just a smooth, steady motion. They were working together, as a team, communicating, cooperating, respecting each other, respecting the boat, respecting the sea. Brian was at the tiller. He held it firmly, confidently, not like before. No more yanking and pulling. No more brute force, just a gentle touch, a firm grip. He knew what he was doing. He was in control, completely in control. He saw me, waved, a confident wave, a respectful wave. I waved back. A small smile played on my lips. He had learned his lesson. He had earned his respect. He had become a sailor. I watched them as they sailed past. They were laughing, joking, enjoying themselves, they were safe, they were confident, they were respectful, they had learned their lesson. A valuable lesson, a lesson about the sea, a lesson about respect, a lesson about life. I looked out at the water. The sun was shining. The waves were gentle. The gulls were calling. It was peaceful, quiet. The way I liked it, everything was right. Everything was in order. Everything was as it should be. I looked out at the water. The sun glinted off the waves, sparkling, dancing like a million little diamonds. I smiled. A quiet smile, a knowing smile. It was a good day, a peaceful day. A day for reflection. I thought about that Brian kid, about his arrogance, his disrespect, his transformation. He had learned his lesson, a valuable lesson, a lesson about respect, a lesson about experience, a lesson about life, respect. It's a funny thing, you can't demand it, you can't buy it, you have to earn it. And you earn it through experience, through hard work, through dedication, through competence, through life experience. That's the key. It's what separates the boys from the men, the pretenders from the professionals, the know-it-alls from the know-hows. Experience teaches you things you can't learn in a book, things you can't learn in a classroom, things you can only learn by doing, by living, by making mistakes, by learning from them. Respect for experience. That's what's missing these days. Too many young folks think they know everything. They think they can just jump in and do anything, without any training, without any guidance, without any respect for those who have come before them. They're wrong, dead wrong. Experience matters, it counts, it's valuable, it's what makes us who we are, it's what gives us wisdom, it's what earns us respect, and it's something that should be valued, cherished, respected. I took another sip of my coffee. It was getting cold, didn't matter. I was enjoying the view, enjoying the peace, enjoying the wisdom that comes with age, with experience, with a lifetime spent learning, growing, earning respect. So if you're watching this and you've got a story about some young whippersnapper who underestimated you, who disrespected you, who thought they knew more than you, tell us about it. Share your story. Let us know how you put them in their place, how you taught them a lesson, how you earned their respect. We want to hear it. We want to celebrate it. We want to share it with the world. Subscribe to our channel. Hit the like button. Leave a comment. Tell us your story. And remember, folks, respect is earned, not given. And experience is everything.